At the airport, my sister gave me a smug little smile. "We didn't reserve a seat for you. We figured you'd cancel anyway." My parents just laughed and walked through security without me. What none of them knew? The entire trip was on my card, and 10 minutes earlier I'd canceled all of it. I'm Nate, 29, and until recently I thought I understood what family meant. That word used to feel like home, familiar, safe. But over the last few years it had turned into something closer to a splinter under my skin. A constant reminder that blood doesn't always mean respect. I was always the quiet one in the family, not because I didn't have anything to say, but because nobody really listened when I did. My older sister, Renee, always owned the spotlight. Tall, confident, sharp-tongued. My parents adored her when we were kids, and even now they orbit around her like she's the sun. I guess I was more like Pluto. Technically part of the system, but never really counted. So when Renee proposed a family trip to Portugal for the summer, I'll admit, I was surprised to be included. She brought it up on a group call in April, casually rattling off Lisbon and Porto like she was reading a grocery list. "It'll be an unforgettable trip," she said, with that signature smile of hers. "All four of us together. One last big family thing before Mom and Dad retire." The way she said it made it sound like a gift. I should have known better. I offered to handle the bookings. Flights, hotel, rental car, all of it. It wasn't out of nowhere. I travel a lot for work, and I've gotten pretty good at finding deals and coordinating logistics. Plus, my job had just given me a decent bonus, and maybe some naive part of me thought this trip would bring us closer. That if I proved myself useful enough, helpful enough, they'd finally start treating me like an equal. Not just the kid they left out of conversations or leaned on whenever the bills piled up. So I booked everything on my card. Round-trip flights, 7 nights split between a boutique hotel in Lisbon and a countryside inn near Sintra, plus a couple of non-refundable day trips that Renee insisted we absolutely had to do. "You'll get paid back," she said. "Mom and Dad will cover their part. I'll send you mine." The same empty promises as always. I nodded, said sure, and stupidly hoped this time would be different. Weeks went by. Nobody paid me back. I brought it up gently at first. "Hey, just a reminder about the trip bookings. I put it all on my card, so whenever works." Renee left the message on read. My mom replied, "We'll sort it out soon." My dad just sent a thumbs-up emoji. I should have taken the hint then. Should have walked away. But there was that same sliver of hope again, that painful wish to feel like I belonged. So I went ahead, packed my bags, took the time off work, even bought a new pair of shoes because Renee once made a comment about how I always looked like I just walked out of a library. Boarding without me. Then the morning of the flight came. We were supposed to meet at the airport around 6:30 for our 9 a.m. flight. I got there at 6:15. Bag slung over my shoulder, fully caffeinated and running mostly on nerves and expectation. I waited at the check-in counter, scanning the crowd. At 6:40, I spotted them. My parents walking ahead, Renee behind them with a designer suitcase that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. I smiled, waved. None of them waved back. Renee walked right past me, eyes glued to her phone. My mom gave me a half-hearted nod, and my dad just looked tired, always tired. Then Renee stopped a few feet ahead, turned to me and said with a smug little laugh, "Oh, I forgot to mention. We didn't book a seat for you. I figured you'd probably cancel last minute anyway, like you always do." My smile faltered. I blinked. "What are you talking about? I booked everyone's tickets." She shrugged. "You did. But when you asked me to confirm the passenger list, I kind of forgot to include you." "Oops." She said it like she was commenting on the weather. I looked at my parents, waiting for at least some confusion, some concern. Nothing. They were already handing over their passports at the gate. My mom laughed like Renee had just made a clever joke. "You're always so sensitive, Nate." And then they boarded. Just like that. I stood there, stunned, surrounded by strangers rushing through security. My bag strap felt like it weighed 100 pounds. I had to step aside as another family walked past me, laughing about snack options and Wi-Fi passwords. I walked slowly to the nearest bench, sat down, and tried to breathe. I'd been left out before, at birthdays, at announcements, even in family photos. But this was different. This was deliberate, calculated, public. And yet I wasn't as wrecked as I thought I'd be. Hurt, yes. Angry, absolutely. But underneath all of it, something else had started simmering. Something sharp, cold, final. Because what they didn't know, what Renee never even bothered to ask, was whose card the bookings were under. Every flight, the hotel, the Sintra day trip, the river cruise on the Tagus. Everything they were about to enjoy on this family trip had my name stamped on it. And in that moment, something inside me clicked. I pulled out my phone, opened the airline app. My heart was racing, but my fingers were steady. I navigated to my bookings. There they were. 4 passenger names, 3 of them already halfway through security, one of them still sitting on a cold bench near the check-in counter. I tapped Manage Trip, then Cancel. The app gave me a final confirmation prompt. Are you sure you want to cancel this reservation? This action cannot be undone. I stared at it for a second. Then I smiled. Yeah, I whispered, and tapped Confirm. 10 minutes later, the alert started rolling in, and I just sat there, watching the panic unfold. My phone buzzed once, then again, then again. I didn't even need to look. I knew it was them. The first message came from Renee. Did you mess with the flights? Our boarding passes aren't scanning. Then one from my mom. What's going on? They're saying our tickets aren't valid. And then my dad, in his usual all-caps style, like he thought it added weight to his words. Fix this. We can't get through. I leaned back on the bench and watched the terminal screen quietly update. Flight to Lisbon, final boarding. But those seat names, gone, erased, reabsorbed into the system like they'd never existed. I'd used the cancellation protection through my premium travel card, one of those perks they'd never once bothered to ask about. Refund pending, charges voided. As far as the airline was concerned, their little Portuguese getaway had never been real. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt around them in a long time. Control. I let the buzzing pile up. Messages, missed calls. Even a voicemail from my dad that started with, "This isn't funny," and ended with some stammered demand about being the man of the family. I didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, I got up, walked to the cafe inside the terminal, and bought myself a cinnamon roll. Small thing, but it was probably the best thing I'd tasted in weeks. When I finally opened the family group chat, yes, they still had one, and yes, I was still in it, rarely acknowledged. It had already turned into chaos. Renee. What did you do? Mom. Nate, we're stuck at the airport. Do you think this is funny? Dad. You're going to pay for this. We'll sue if we have to. Then Renee again. And my luggage already got checked. It's on the plane. Do you understand how expensive this trip was going to be? You'd better fix this. That last one almost made me laugh. The audacity. The entire cost had been fronted on my credit card, and none of them had ever sent so much as a transfer. Even the hotel booking included the Riverview upgrade Renee had insisted on. I was supposed to split all of that with people who didn't even think I deserved a seat. So I finally typed a reply. Just one short, cold message. You didn't think I'd actually come anyway, remember? Then I turned my phone off. First class alone. I sat there in silence for a few minutes, taking in the irony of it all. How many times had I bent over backwards for them? Picked up the dinner tab just to be told I owed it to family. Covered last-minute bills whenever Renee had one of her emergencies. Spent my own holidays helping Mom and Dad fix the broken furnace while Renee posted beach photos from Cancun. And every time, I told myself, Maybe this time they'll appreciate it. Maybe this time they'll actually see me. But the truth was, they never really did. Not truly. I was just the background character in Renee's show. The quiet brother, the passive son, the guy who'll probably pay for it. Not anymore. I checked into a small airport lounge using my travel membership, plugged my phone into a charger, and had an espresso while the chaos, no doubt, was still boiling over past security. I knew they'd panic, try to rebook, complain to someone, blame me for sabotaging the family vacation. But deep down, I think they already knew. This was on them, all of it. Years of passive neglect, casual cruelty, and blatant favoritism had finally caught up to them, and I'd simply removed the cushion they always expected me to provide. They wouldn't find new flights today, not last minute, not during peak summer season, and definitely not for 3 people on the same itinerary. But I had a plan. A very different kind of plan. I opened my laptop and pulled up my own backup reservation, the one I'd made a few days earlier, just in case. Solo ticket, first class, same destination. I smiled as I reviewed the details because I was still going to Portugal, just not with them. That's when a notification flashed on the lounge TV. Something about a group of angry passengers being escorted away from a gate by security for causing a disturbance during boarding. I didn't even need to guess. My phone buzzed again. I glanced at it and saw Renee's name flashing, a video call request this time. I let it ring and ring and ring, then declined it because some things, once canceled, don't need to be reinstated. But that wasn't the end of it, not even close, because what they didn't know, what they hadn't even started to grasp, was that the hotel reservation was also under my name, and check-in started in 7 hours in Lisbon, far from the gate where they were currently being escorted away. That's when things really got interesting. The lounge was quiet, almost strangely so, compared to the mess I'd left behind at the gates. I leaned back in the soft leather chair, watching my espresso swirl faintly, still steaming. Outside the tall windows, planes taxied along the runway like slow, patient beasts, and somewhere in the distance, mine was waiting. First class, window seat. A calm arrival in Lisbon while my family was probably still yelling at some poor gate agent, demanding answers they had no right to. I had about 3 hours before boarding and nowhere to be. No one to entertain, no one to take care of. It was a strange kind of freedom, but it didn't last long. A new message popped up on my lock screen from an unknown number. No name, just, "Don't do anything rash, Nate. We can fix this." I stared at it for a moment before realizing it was Renee. She'd changed her number again, probably to dodge spam or old exes. Typical. I didn't respond. Then came a second message, this time from my mom. "Sweetheart, we're sorry. Call me when you get a second. We're stuck and we just need to talk." That might have worked maybe 6 years ago. But today, after they laughed, literally laughed, while boarding a flight they didn't realize I controlled, not a chance. Instead of responding, I logged into the hotel account. My reservation, my card, my name. It was still active. 7 nights, a 4-star boutique hotel overlooking the Tagus River, 2 double rooms plus an optional extra bed. I could have easily changed the guest list, added their names. But I didn't. Why did some quiet voice in my head whisper not to? The same voice that had gotten louder over the past year, the one that started speaking up every time they dismissed me, used me, ignored me, and now that voice had taken the wheel. I clicked into the Manage Reservation tab and hovered over the Cancel button, but didn't click it. Not yet. Instead, I opened the guest information section, blank except for my own name, and then I made a small edit. Jake Sullivan, typed under second guest. Jake was my college roommate. A good guy, funny, easygoing. Always wanted to go to Europe but never had the money. We'd lost touch a bit, but he still texted every couple of months, usually after midnight, asking if I was still alive and whether I'd ever stop being a ghost. I clicked save, then grabbed my phone and texted him. Hey man, you busy this week? Free trip to Lisbon, hotel's covered, first night's dinner is on me. He replied within 30 seconds. Are you kidding me? Nope. I'm already packing. Tell me when to be at the airport. A smile spread across my face. For the first time in days, I actually felt myself smiling, not just faking it for family dinners or pretending their jokes didn't land like a punch to the chest. Then, like fate was testing my resolve, my phone lit up with a video call from Dad. I looked at the screen. Declined. 2 seconds later, another one. Declined. Then a message followed. This isn't how family treats each other. Oh, that was rich. Now they wanted to talk about how family treats each other. Now that they were stuck at the terminal, grounded, panicking, probably having to call someone to pick them up. Now they wanted to pull the family card. I didn't reply, but I took a screenshot. Just for myself. Just in case I ever started feeling guilty because I knew it was coming, that crawling guilt always did. Years of conditioning can't be undone by one power move, no matter how satisfying. But not this time. This time I was ready. I opened my laptop and pulled up a draft email I'd started months earlier. It had been sitting in my drafts folder, unfinished, unpolished. A letter to my family that I never intended to send. Just a place to unload everything I'd never said out loud. I started typing. You always assumed I'd be there. You never said it, but I saw the way you leaned on me for everything, from bills to babysitting to bailing Renee out of her latest disaster. You figured I'd stay quiet, like I always did. Figured I'd swallow the jokes, the slights, the way you treated me like an afterthought, a shadow of your golden child. But I was watching, learning, waiting. You forgot who made this trip possible. Forgot whose name was on every confirmation email, every hotel suite, every plane ticket. And today, you remembered. So when you're wondering why you're home unpacking your bags and I'm having espresso in Lisbon, remember this. You boarded that plane without me. You laughed. Now I'm boarding without you. I didn't send it, but damn, it felt good to write. When my boarding group was called, the tension in my shoulders had melted. I walked to the gate, passport in hand, handed over my ticket with a kind of calm I didn't think I was capable of. The flight attendant smiled. Enjoy your flight, Mr. Reeves. Oh, I said, waving slightly. I think I will. I turned my phone off right before boarding, because the real fun was still coming. And Renee, she wasn't done yet, not even close. The moment the plane lifted off the runway, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Peace? No. Not the forced kind of peace you find at family dinners, where everyone's pretending not to hate each other. Not the kind where you're constantly calculating what to say, how to avoid conflict, how to make yourself small. This was real, quiet, heavy in the best way. I leaned back in my first-class seat, sipped the complimentary champagne, and watched the clouds unfold beneath us like silk. I landed in Lisbon the next morning under a bright blue sky, a warm breeze, and a dozen unread messages. Most were from Renee, some frantic, some passive-aggressive, some fully manipulative. You made your point. Enough already. Do you know how embarrassing this was for Mom? The least you could do is send us the hotel info. We're already in debt because of this. You ruined our trip. Hope you're happy. The guilt tried to crawl back in, but it couldn't take hold. Not anymore. Instead, I found Jake at the airport about an hour later. He was jet-lagged, hungry, and wearing mismatched socks with sneakers. But when he saw me, he gave me the biggest grin I'd seen in months. Man, he said, clapping me on the back, tell me this isn't a prank. It's not, I said, handing him a fresh pastel de nata. Welcome to Lisbon. The hotel was incredible. 5-star view of the Tagus, spacious rooms, complimentary port wine on arrival. Jake kept saying he felt like a fraud walking through the marble lobby. I told him to just enjoy it. We were already behind schedule for some actual vacation. We did everything the original itinerary had promised, and then some. Took the river cruise Renee had begged me to book. Except now it was just the two of us with a guide who hummed Fado songs as he steered us along the water. We visited every cathedral from Mom's Pinterest board, ate our way through every custard tart I could find, stopping only to recover in little squares with coffee and pastries. And every so often I'd check my phone. That's when I noticed something strange. Their messages had stopped for almost a full day. No texts, no calls, no sarcastic emoji from Renee. Then, out of nowhere, a notification popped up. Renee tagged you in a post. Curious. Okay, big mistake. The public fallout. The post was public, and it was ugly. Funny how the quiet ones turn out to be the most heartless. My brother abandoned us at the airport after promising a family trip to Portugal. He even canceled our hotel. Mom hasn't stopped crying for days. We were humiliated. If you see this, know this. You broke this family. You chose revenge over love, and that's on you. There were photos, too, of my parents sitting in the terminal, looking exhausted and defeated. Renee had clearly picked the worst possible angles. Dad with his head in his hands, Mom wiping her eyes, like she was staging a crime scene for sympathy points. And it worked. The comments rolled in. What kind of brother does that? This is disgusting. He sounds toxic. Cut ties. He clearly doesn't care. I stared at it for a long time, my stomach twisting. Not because they'd painted me as the villain. I expected that. What actually got to me was how easily people believed it. Like years of quiet support, countless favors, and every sacrifice I'd made had never happened at all. That's when I decided. Enough silence. Enough letting them shape the narrative while I watched from the sidelines. I took a breath, opened my own Instagram, and wrote a reply. Funny how you left out the part where you didn't book me a seat. Funny how you forgot to pay me back for the $13,000 in expenses I put on my own card. Funny how you laughed while boarding a flight you never planned on letting me be part of. I didn't cancel a family trip. I canceled being treated like I was nothing. And if that ruined your vacation, maybe it's time to think about who actually broke this family. I posted it. Attached the receipts. Literal screenshots of the flight charges, the hotel confirmation under my name, even the messages they'd sent before realizing I held any power at all. Then I logged out. The reaction came fast. Within a few hours, my inbox was full again, but this time the tone had shifted. A few messages came from distant relatives who had no idea what was really going on. "I'm sorry, Nate," one wrote. My cousin Marissa messaged, "This was incredibly brave. I'm proud of you." Even one of Renee's own friends sent me a DM. Just, "She's always been like this. Good for you." But my parents? Silence. Until day 3. I was sitting at a rooftop cafe with Jake, watching the sun dip below the Lisbon skyline, when my phone rang. Dad. I let it ring twice before answering. He didn't say hi, just sighed. "I suppose you think you taught us a lesson." I stayed quiet. Then he added, "Your mother hasn't eaten properly in 2 days." Still, I didn't speak. Finally, he said, "If this was about the money, we'll pay you back. Just come home." That made me laugh. Not loud, just under my breath. "It's not about the money," I said. "It's about respect. Something I haven't gotten from any of you in years." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said the one thing I never expected. "What do you want from us?" It wasn't said warmly, and it wasn't even really an apology, but it was honest, defeated, like a man finally realizing the ground he'd been standing on had started to crack. And for the first time in my life, I didn't cave. I told the truth. "I don't want anything from you. Not anymore." I hung up. No shouting, no tears, just closure. The rest of the trip felt surreal. Quiet, healing. Jake and I extended our stay 2 more days. On the last night, we made a toast by the water, watching the city lights ripple across the surface. To cutting ties, he said. To choosing peace, I answered. When I finally flew home, there was no one waiting for me at the airport. No welcome text, no dramatic scene, just silence. And it was perfect. I moved out of my apartment 2 weeks later. Found a loft in another city. New job, new number, new life. It's been months now. They haven't reached out since, and I've never looked back. Some people think family is forever, but sometimes walking away is the family you give yourself.